Okay, thank you, Jesse. And we want to start off by saying big thank you to Jesse and everybody at 10 Marks for inviting us to take part in this. We really appreciate the opportunity. We call our little presentation today Common Sense for the Standards that these states have adopted. And it is a definite challenge, but one that needs to be approached with sort of logical thinking and level-headedness. And we hope we can provide that for folks, especially today, as we dive into the mathematics standards and give you some information about them. Our sources are pretty simple. We don't make any of our stuff up. All of this stuff is uh, information that has come from authors of the Common Core standards themselves, particularly a website that they created called achievethecore.org. Lots of great reference material there, lots of information, and that's where we built a lot of this content that makes sense. Our agenda, pretty simple. We're going to take a look first at the shifts that the Common Core calls for in mathematics. They are very specific about the shifts in teaching and learning that need to happen in order for the standards to be put into place effectively in the right way. And we want to talk also about how you can engage the Common Core, how you can sort of take control of the process. A lot of the real work will be done by teachers on the ground in the classrooms, and we want to hopefully give you some ideas about how to make that easier. Also, we'll be sharing with you a link and giving you a little preview of the October 17th webinar, and also our contact information will come at the end. Let's start by talking about the shifts that are expected in mathematics instruction. It's clear from the way the standards are written that math can't go on being taught in the exact same ways. The standards call for specific changes, and these changes are significant. The first shift that the standards call for in years past, mathematics curriculum has been thought of as sort of a mile wide and an inch deep, where there are multiple content expectations, so many concepts that have to be covered, and not enough time to cover them all. And what has ended up happening is we're rushing through textbooks, trying to make sure we get to everything, but not really building any sort of understanding for students. So this idea of just trying to cover it all, just trying to race to finish a textbook, that all uh, needs to go away. We need to focus on fewer topics, fewer concepts, and get into those concepts in a deeper way. And the standards themselves identify what we should focus on. And those priorities are here in this chart for grades K through 8. These aren't the only things that are expected in each grade, but these, it is explained, are what teachers are supposed to focus on in these grades. Not only are they laid out here, but they are specifically mentioned in the introduction grade level. Example here is what it says about kindergarten, and a grade 7 example, you see there that it specifically names the priorities for each grade level, and there is no guesswork for teachers when it comes to what should be the focus at each grade. The second shift calls for more coherence. The expectation is that the grade-to-grade progressions make sense, and a lot of times what doesn't happen in our planning work and in our curriculum work within our schools is any sort of conversation vertically between grades 1 and 2 or grades K1 and 2 about what it's going to look like, or between grades 6 and 7 and 8 and how the standards progress. One of the efforts that the authors of the standards information builds on the previous year and also extends coherently to the next year. And everything ties together and everything makes sense. Just to give you an idea, here is an operations and algebraic thinking standard for first grade that deals with word problems. And I'm not going to read it to you. You can see what it says there. But when you look at that standard and the specifics that it lays out for what's expected of first graders and how they should solve word problems, and then you look at a word problem standard for second grade, you see that they make sense. They obviously go together and they build upon each other from one-step word problems to now one and two-step. And here's a third grade standard that deals with word problems. Again, they make sense together. They build upon each other. Word problem standard for grade 4. So looking at those four, it's clear to see that they build upon one another and that they are organized in a coherent fashion. So that's shift number 2, coherence. The third shift, and possibly not only the most important but the most challenging to really define, is rigor, a shift towards more rigorous teaching, more rigorous expectations, and this is going to be one of the most challenging shifts, I think, for teachers. However, the authors of the standards have broken down rigor because it's something that can be defined in many different ways and is defined by different people in many different ways. They've broken it down into 3 elements. So we like to go through the 3 elements of academic rigor that are expected in the Common Core math standards. The first one would be deep conceptual understanding. What the authors mean here is that they're you're looking for students to understand, truly understand the math that they're doing, that it becomes more than just steps to follow or more than just memorizing a mnemonic or a trick, but that rather students understand and have a deep understanding of what they're expected to do and how and why the math works. Here's a 6th grade example that really illustrates how much depth and how much understanding is expected. Is to know the volume of a right rectangular prism, but this standard goes deeper and hopefully, when taught the right way, leads to conceptual understanding. And also here, a 3rd grade standard, not just find area or calculate area, but relate it to multiplication and addition. This is how the standards point to deeper conceptual understanding. The second piece of rigor is this idea of application, that math should be supported and taught in context and that meaningful approaches are taken so that students understand why they're doing the math they are and how it can be applied to the real world. There are a couple of examples here too. First, again, from the 6th grade, talking about unit rates. The standards specifically mention application and how this sort of math can be applied, encouraging teachers to incorporate that in their teaching. 3rd grade standard here for time also deals with an applied concept, something that students can tie the math to, again, which also ties in with the previous element of deep conceptual understanding. So they go together. The third one then is procedural fluency. The Common Core is very clear that it isn't just depth and challenging problems that students need to be able to do, but that there has to be the ability to quickly and accurately calculate math facts. Math facts have a place in the Common Core. There are expectations, and the key to this is the reasoning, the rationale, is that without the fluency, the complex work is much less accessible. It's impossible to do complex thinking and complex work without a strong foundation of fluency. And so built into the standards, there is specific language that addresses what students should be able to do and how fluent they should be at what grades. For example, here's a third grade standard and also a sixth grade standard that both deal with fluency expectations. There's a little chart here that explains what the expected fluencies are in each of the grades K through 6. So you can easily see what is expected in terms of fluency for each grade level. It's mapped out for you clearly and in a way that's easy to follow and easy to understand. We do want to encourage you to submit your questions to the question box, but at this time we also want to encourage you as teachers to take the time to dig into the standards yourselves and discover the complexities at your grade level. You're going to notice a lot of changes, and it's okay to wait for administrators or other personnel to point out what these changes are to you and for you. But if you take the time to do it yourself, I think it becomes a little more meaningful and a little clearer to you. You'll have a better understanding of what is expected of you at your grade level. And there are some very subtle things contained within the standards, especially things like shifts in content. For example, in the younger grades, there's a shift in when students start to work with money and when they start to work with time and telling time and answering time problems and things like that. So, around the standards, such as any call to do any sort of simplifying of fractions. Nowhere in the standards will you find anything that is going to require students to simplify fractions or to reduce fractions to lowest terms. That is noticeably absent from the standard. Same for older grades when it comes to simplifying expressions. That isn't part of the standards either. And so it's those tiny things that you'll notice when you do your close reading for yourself, and then be able to bring that to the dialogue that will be happening at your district and school level. So, and just a note to remember too is that it's very clear in the standards that these are the things that we're supposed to teach. This is the what teachers will need to teach, not the how to teach it. And nowhere in the standards does it require anything in math or ELA to be taught a certain way. And so this opens up sort of a great opportunity for teachers to seize upon that, but just to remember that these are not a curriculum. They are instead standards. I think far too often we mix up those two words. Standards meaning expectations and curriculum meaning the how, the how it happens, how the teaching happens. And also remember too, sort of on the same line of the idea of simplifying fractions not being in there, it's also clearly stated that the standards represent the floor rather than the ceiling in terms of expectations. If teachers want to go beyond the standards and require students to reduce fractions or simplify fractions, that's up to them. The standards aren't saying that those aren't important things or that there aren't other things that students should be able to do at that grade level. They are just defining the foundation, the minimum that students should be expected to do. In our second section here, I want to move from talking about the specific language of the standards to talking about engaging the Common Core. And we think that teachers really need to have the initiative here in this whole process and not let the standards be something that happens to them, but rather something that teachers are the ones who shape, and teachers are the ones who bring the standards to life. It's not going to be policymakers and administrators who are in the classrooms making these things happen. It's going to be you. And so why not take advantage of this sort of advance notice that we have to really dig deep and understand, and also to start working now on collaborating with our colleagues and with our personal learning networks around how to best implement the Common Core. So we want to show you some tools that might be helpful when it comes to collaborating with a team of teachers or connecting with others who are doing similar work. And that's what we mean when we say engage the Common Core. First, I want to share 4 collaboration tools that make it very, very easy to work together with other teachers, whether it's sharing resources or building documents together. All 4 of these things can be very helpful. One of those is it saves them, and you can then access them from any computer, I guess I should say. And it also enables you to build groups and invite people to join groups so that you can share resources with each other and receive notification when other people have bookmarked things, and so forth. So Diigo is definitely a site to explore, completely free, and we have actually created a group uh, for sharing Common Core resources, and that address is on the screen there. It's our Common Core State Standards Diigo group, and we're constantly bookmarking new sites and sharing them through that Diigo group. So that we encourage you to check that out and follow along with that. Another one that's gaining in popularity is Pinterest. A lot of Common Core resources being shared on Pinterest. We have our own board at pinterest.com/engaginged, but also a great way to connect with your fellow teachers and share and discover new resources and new information. Wikispaces is a great way to build a collaborative sort of library of links and resources and documents. A wiki is, if you're not familiar with it, is a website that anyone who's invited to can edit. And so a great idea would be to build a wiki for your team of teachers and create different pages for subject areas or grade levels, and then everyone who you're working with, you can set it up so they have access to the wiki also, and then it becomes a group sort of collaborative effort that's there whenever you need it or whenever you need to turn to it. Great way for collecting and sharing and collaborating wiki spaces. And Live Binders is similar. It's a virtual binder and set up with tabs and subcategories and things like that, but it's also a very easy way to collect resources and in a way that others can access as well. And again, all those tools are online and they're all free. Speaking of working online, when you become connected with others who are working on a similar project or who are working towards the same goal that you are, a lot of great things can happen. And so we definitely want to give you some ideas for how to connect with others around the Common Core. One is something we sort of created a hashtag on Twitter called CC Chat, CC for Common Core. And if you follow the CC Chat hashtag, you're going to get tons of great resources that are being shared every day by great educators all around the country. You don't even have to be a member of Twitter or belong to Twitter to access this hashtag, all you got to do is go to search.twitter.com, type in the pound sign and CC chat, and you'll be taken to a list of the most recent uh, resources that have been shared using that hashtag. If you are a Twitter user, you can create a saved search, or even better in Hootsuite or TweetDeck, create a column that updates automatically with the CC chat hashtag. And also, if you're already on Twitter and you're an active tweeter, and you're sharing Common Core resources or tweeting about them, don't forget to put that hashtag on there so that other people can see what it is that you've got, and access the things that you're sharing, sort of broaden your network there. And it's a great way for people to work together at a distance and learn from each other all about the Common Core. It's become a very active hashtag. It's pretty exciting to follow that. There's pretty much always some useful and interesting material that comes through there. Uh, just some other websites that you may or may not be familiar with that are really helpful when it comes to building lessons and units, and getting sort of prepared to make all these shifts that we talked about. One is called Illustrative Mathematics, and they have performance tasks and activities arranged by standard, uh, by grade level, by domain. You can get to what you need to work on, and there's tons of activities and resources there for you to access. Illustrative Mathematics is an excellent site, .org I should say. Um, a lot of different states are really going above and beyond in terms of organizing and preparing for the core. One of those is North Carolina. They have done some amazing work, not only posting resources about the Common Core in ELA and math, but also in unpacking those standards in a way that makes sense to teachers, and in a way that shows those standards mean. I made a shortened little web address there for you to access the unpacked math standards that the state of North Carolina has come up with. Several states are doing a great job on this, and just because you don't live or work there doesn't mean you can't use their resources. States like Utah and Arizona and Ohio come to mind, but definitely check out North Carolina, as they have quite a bit to offer. There's also, if you're interested in learning more about the nuts and bolts of the Common Core, and also sort of some of the rationale behind it, the Hunt Institute is a nonprofit whose YouTube channel features quite a bit of content about the Common Core. Very up to date, very informative, and makes you feel a little bit more informed about what you're doing, and really informed about the background and what's going on with the core. The NCTM has put together something called the Math Common Core Coalition. We've created an address there for that one too. It's on your screen. But the Math Common Core Coalition has all sorts of resources and articles and help for math teachers to make these shifts effectively. It's an excellent resource coming out of the NCTM there. And then finally, a little self-promotion for our site, engagingeducators.com, in particular our blog at engagingeducators.com/blog. We're regularly sharing Common Core resources and really trying to get involved in the process and in the conversation, and in a way that helps teachers, again, with a common sense approach. I should also mention you can follow us on Twitter at EngagingEd. So now's the time in the program where I know Jesse has some questions for us. So I'm going to sort of call on Jesse to share those with us.
We do have quite a few questions. The first question that seems to be pretty popular is whether the presentation and the slides are going to be available after the webinar. And to everyone who's asked that, yes, we will make them available. That won't be an issue at all. The next question I have from teachers, are there any fluency standards for grades 7 and 8? There's a mention. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that we mentioned K through 6, and again, those come directly from the standards themselves. I you'd have to look a little closer, but I think the fluency expectations sort of stop um, after grade 6, probably because they deal, with basics, not only facts, but also fluencies with multi-digit multiplication, multi-digit division, things like that. All that should be done and fluent by the end of grade 6. So I have not seen fluency expectations for 7 and 8.
Okay, thanks so much. The next question we have is what curriculum and textbooks do you recommend for the Common Core?
It's interesting. Personal belief is that it's a little bit too early for textbook and curriculum publishers to be ready to make the shift. I've yet to see, maybe it exists, but I'm sure more and more are coming out as we speak, but I've yet to see curriculum or textbooks that are truly aligned with these shifts that the standards call for. And I think a lot of times it's very easy for textbook publishers to sort of capitalize on this huge demand and slap on a sticker on the cover that says, Common Core aligned, or to move things around in their book, maybe move things among grade levels and in their workbooks and things like that, and get their little sticker on the front. And I worry that we're not looking closely at the shifts that we talked about here today when we are looking curriculum or different textbooks. I don't think the publishers are there yet. I would have to imagine they'll get there, but as of right now, I haven't seen them. Now, I'm not a textbook reviewer or anything like that, so they may be out there, but I've yet to be convinced that there's one that's completely ready for all that the core asks for.
Okay, the next question we have is about fluency norms. This teacher says, I've heard that the fluency norms do not include the amount of time needed to answer math questions fluently, the notion being that some of us speak quickly and some of us speak more slowly, but to convey meaning, we speak fluently. Is it true that the Common Core state standards do not include math timings?
That is correct. There is no mention of time or speed in the standards. They sort of define fluency as quick and accurate. I think with accurate being what seems to be emphasized, but not so much talking about time. I think from what I've read, it seems to mean that fluent in terms of speed and time means quick enough so that it doesn't get in your way of solving the more complicated problems. And for different people, that's obviously going to be, different speeds. But I think that's how you would measure it. It is quick enough to not be a barrier to success with more complicated problems.
Okay, great. The next question I have is about bookmarks. The question is, are all of your bookmarks for all grades or are they grade specific?
No, we pretty much have something for everybody in there. They're kind of tagged by subject area. So if you went in there and searched the mathematics, you'd find everything. They're tagged more and organized more by subject than by grade level, but you will find there's something for everybody in there. We've been collecting them for quite a while, and it's grown in number certainly.
Okay. The next question I have comes from an international teacher. She says that she doesn't have to subscribe to state standards or Common Core. She works with an IB middle years program. Her question is whether the Common Core will replace individual state standards eventually and become national standards.
Yes, that's definitely the plan, and there are a large number of states, and Jesse always has to remind me 47, right?
46.
Oh, 46. Jesse, and the District of Columbia, don't forget. I think that's where I get 47. But anyway, there are that large number of states, 46 states, have adopted the Common Core state standards in math and ELA. The holdouts are sort of in the process of maybe doing so. It's unclear at this time, but yes, starting in the school year 2014-15, those standards will replace the state standards, and the tests that are being developed that we'll be talking more about in the October 17th webinar, the tests that are being developed will replace the state tests. There will be one common test, well, more than one, but they'll be based on common standards for everybody in the country.
Awesome. The next question I have says, there's little mention in the Common Core standards to enhance the why approach. Generally, what is relevant is not what is most applicable. One of my questions to my students is always, why should you learn this or that? Making connections in real life is important. Where do you see this in the Common Core?
I sort of missed the first part of that.
Sorry, the first part was just that there's little mention in the Common Core standards to enhance the why approach. And so I think they generally just want to know more about where that comes in.
Okay, I think that brings to mind the second um, part of the rigor shift, the shift towards rigor. The second element of that is application, and the idea that math needs to be meaningful, and we need to make it meaningful in our approach, and we need to teach it in context. So I think that whole idea lends to what you call the why approach, and I think it's a great direction to go in. So while it may not, that while they may not specifically tell you how to apply each of these standards to sort of a quote-unquote real-world situation, the overarching expectation is that we will shift to an approach that focuses on application and focuses on teaching math in context.
Great. The next question I have for you. Oh no, I just lost it. No, I didn't. This teacher says, I'm in a bilingual DC school teaching math. One of the problems I encounter is resources to teach the Common Core standards in Spanish. I have to go to translations, and every time this takes more time away from my teaching. Are there any resources in Spanish available to me to help teach fifth grade?
I am definitely not an expert in ELL. But that could be something, if you get a hold of us, contact at looking for things for you, because I think that's definitely something that is important and something that could help a great number of teachers out there. But get in touch with us, we'll let you know. Sorry, I don't have that right now for you.
The last question I have for you is about the adoption of the Common Core state standards. This teacher asks, wasn't adopting the Common Core standards part of the acceptability of Race to the Top federal funding?
That's another one that I'm not too sure about. I do believe that in order to receive the funding, you had to adopt. I'm not sure how it affects this sort of second round of district level race to the top money that's coming out. But again, I'd have to say that I don't know a ton about it, and not really able to answer your question. But again, if you shot me an email reminder, I could certainly find out for you.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you and Ben so much for such a great presentation. You gave us some really great information to work on. There will be some more webinars to come. We have an October 17th webinar, which will be the second half of this particular Common Core series. And as Ben has mentioned, it will be focusing on assessment. If there's anything between now and the next webinar that you would like to know about Common Core assessment, please feel free to email us, contact us, tweet us, or go chase after engaging educators and ask them a few questions too. Just a reminder for anyone who is interested in getting an attendance certificate for this webinar, be sure to email us at instructor@10marks.com and be sure to include your full name. We will get that to you as soon as we can.